off. Now, we've heard a lot of V12 engines today, and they sound just a little bit different this time, don't they, Danny?
That Lancaster Bomber, one of only two flying in the world today. This one comes to us from the Canadian Warplane Heritage.
Is that around it? I don't know where you put it.
Boy, you look out here, Lancasters, B-25s, Mustangs, Jugs flying. It wouldn't take a lot of imagination to think about right over there in those beautiful trees to the south of us, some hedgerows, and you could think that this just might be England back in World War II.
38 by Lockheed, the P38 Lightning, forming up with the other fighters of that era. We'll tell you about each individual fighter, its characteristics, its service in the war, and what's happening to those aircraft now in the way of becoming nearly extinct.
You know, Dan,
of the Rolls-Royce Packard. Whenever we say Rolls-Royce Merlin engine in these airplanes, usually you get a tap on the shoulder from General Yeager, and he'd say to you, putting out the war material that the guys in harm's way would need to get the job done. Not only were airplanes and bombers built, but tanks and guns and ships to numbers that will never be duplicated again.
Of course, as we watch that first P-51 come diving down, you can see that great profile with the scoop down below. That liquid-cooled V-12, it was great for high-altitude power and speed on carts. The old Jug, one of my favorites.
Look low and to the left, here comes the B-25. No, here comes the B-38, I'm sorry. Twin engine, twin boom. Leave it to Lockheed to be a little bit different than anybody else in World War II, but guess what that P-38 did? It produced the second highest and the first highest aces of World War II. P-38 did that. So was it a superior design? You bet it was. Twin engine, twin boom, counter-rotating propellers, and that new fancy nose gear. Lockheed was way out in front. The insurance per year has gone way up. Look low to the left on a strafing run, right down off the deck. That unmistakable sound. Now you're going to hear two different sounds as our fighters and bombers come in. That sound of the V-12 engine, it's a purr. Then you'll hear the rumble and the roar of the round 1,000, no, over 15,000 of these aircraft built, about 15,323.
With the Russian Air Force on a Lend-Lease program. That's her P-63, the King Cobra. A little bit different. Yes, it still had the V-12 engine, but it was actually behind the pilot with a prop shaft going between his legs up to where they also had to go 15,000 feet with all its heavy cannons and armament. It was very effective on the eastern front in a ground attack.
Made famous by Colonel Gabby Kobreski, the highest scoring ace of the P-47s. Great story. We were doing an air show in the Hamptons on Long Island several years ago, Southampton Airport. I wanted to meet. All right, look low to the left. Now, Richard Bong and Tommy Thompson were the highest scoring and second highest scoring aces of World War II in the twin-engine, twin-tail P-38 Lightning. 40 kills each. How ironic. How ironic that Richard Bong came home and died in flight testing of the new jets. Wow. Went through all that in a P-80 Shooting Star.
As we see the King Cobra come off here, one of the unique experiences, it was never confirmed, but some of the fighter pilots flying P-51s and F-51s in Korea claim to have seen 63 Cobras being flown by Russian pilots. It was never confirmed. But after coming off strafing passes like this in Korea, there were several Mustang pilots who found yaks in front of them and successfully engaged and shot down the yaks, proving that multi-role capability even into the
Long Island in New York.
9,900 feet P38, so we've got a 4-ship and another run by P47 Thunderbolt. They had the Razorbacks, and interestingly, some of the early versions of the P47 Thunderbolt
get an airplane into the air. Rich Gibson for Rockford, Illinois. Rich's Incredible Pyro, or RIP, filling up the ground with the ground attack sequence of our fighters. Quite often when a fighter came home, perhaps not having engaged in a dogfight, it would spend all of its armament trying to destroy enemy equipment on the way back to the familiar base. If you saw 7,366 of these aircraft were built in various models with various Rolls-Royce, Merlin, and Rolls-Royce Packard engines of different horsepower. They were built by the Victory Works in Canada. That's the people that put them off the assembly line. Essentially, it was the nighttime bombing raids and the Doolittle raid that was said to have changed the war in the Pacific. That bomber, that twin-engine bomber, was faster to die as the war ended than many of the top-line fighters that we had. You see, we were not prepared for World War II in the way of high technology, speed to it. As the war went on, they mounted a number of rockets and cannons on the nose, and after a medium-range bombing ground, B-25 Mitchell bomber would come back home and do ground attack.
with a suited in the Pacific Theater for use in the strafing and skip bombing roles, 75 millimeter cannons, sometimes as many as 1850 caliber machine guns.
Oh, these sights are just so unbelievable.
There's a lot of people who can argue that the Lancaster was actually maybe a better bombing platform than the B-17. I'm not going to get into that fight here, but I know there are some folks in different countries and continents who would argue it.
You know, John, you bring up a good point. Those debates will go on for years, and I choose not to get a pint or two for a while.
There's the bomb bay coming open.
Bomb bay doors open. 10,000 Bill. Oh, direct hit. All right, you can feel the ground shake. We gave 910 off the very short deck of the USS Hornet. The United States had been in the dumps after our shellacking at Pearl Harbor. Two airplanes on a suicide crash landing mission. Admirals and the Emperor said to their people, "You will never be molested on our shores." Once those bombers got through and saw the vulnerability that we put bombs in a major city, half of the battleships stayed home to protect the shores, half went out into the Pacific, and the war had changed that day. Doolittle thought he would come home and be court-martialed. Far from it. He came home and got the Congressional Medal of Honor by the President himself.
Oh boy, those boys from Rich's Incredible Fire. They're getting cooked and shake out there. I can feel it all the way up here on top of the stage. Subsurface mines for submarines in the Pacific as well. A very versatile airplane. Of course, a lot of action in Africa as well.
Yeah, and that early in its life, the early models were used in coastal patrol, and they actually were able to put a bomb right down the conning tower of one of those German submarines off the coast.
And I'm not making fun of any of the pilots, but you can always tell a veteran B-25 pilot, he has a hearing aid in both ears. Those engines, those right engines are right out there at your ear level. Look going to the left. Agencies, these are mom and pop, who work in fundraising, who give dances, who give raffles, who under the heat of many years will sell dog tags. To keep them
Coming across from in front of us, one of the aircraft will pitch up and head west, leaving 3. This is the kind of honor that is afforded to every pilot who is lost in combat or lost in training to this day, from the time that it started many, many years ago. And when the time comes, I'm going to ask, ladies and gentlemen, that whatever you are doing, that you will